Hey there everybody, Ugly Mug with you once again for another video. This time, I'm going to be installing some LEDs into my C8 Corvette. I'm going to be placing them in the front footwells on the driver and passenger side, as well as the front and rear trunk, so that when you open them or open the doors, you'll get in this particular case, you'll get the blue colored lights that match the rest of the car in those areas. Now keep in mind, you'll only be able to see it when it's dark out or when it's dusk, and it's not really meant to show in the sunlight for obvious reasons. I ordered them from Corvette Mods, the website, and I was able to get them at a fairly good price, comparing them to the other websites and the availability of where I could be getting LEDs. There are a lot of choices that we have, and that's where I chose to go. So with that being said, let's make our way out to the car. Okay, so we're at the car. We're going to start with the rear trunk. And what you're seeing now is the location of where the rear light strips are going to go. It's going to be a two-parter. We have two light strips, but it's all in one piece, separated by a cable. And there they are. Now, first what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to take everything apart. We're going to have to get into where that light is, and we're going to have to disconnect it, because that's where our light's going to connect. And this is the orientation of which the light strips are going to be mounted. But in the meantime, I can put those down and we can go ahead and start to take everything apart. Now we're starting off by taking off the weather stripping. Now we can really just take off the weather stripping off the rear, because that's where we're going to have to separate the liner. And then of course we're going to take off these 4 screw-on retainers. It's just 4 of them, and they're really easy to do. And that's just going to allow us to separate the liner from the car, so we can have access to getting behind it, allow us to go ahead and mount the light strips to the liner itself, because the light strips are actually going to mount to the liner. So right here is where the power is connected. There's just a small module there that's very easy to disconnect. They just snap in place, and once we disconnect that, we're going to go ahead and connect our light strips to it. Now there's a red line on a strip that's going to line up with the inner retainer for that particular side, and that's what I pointed at. So that is where you want to line up that red line, which will help you center it the way it needs to go. And you're going to have the same thing on the other side. So here we go. We just go ahead and snap it in place and make sure it's centered where you want it to be. Again, it's real easy, because you can actually bend it a little bit if you want to. You can bend it so it takes shape of the liner. It won't hurt it at all, and it makes it real easy to do. It's very user-friendly. And then in fact, once I've already made the connection, I can go ahead and start putting the retainers back. Not fully, but just get them on there. They don't have to be fully tightened. In the middle, you have that wire. You can just tuck it in the back, because there's nothing back there to move, so it shouldn't be a problem. But again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to line up the red line that's on the strip. It's actually on the side where the installer sees it, so you can't see it on film. And just go ahead and snap it onto the liner. And then you're gonna fold your wires so that they don't get disturbed once everything is put together. And I'll give you a close-up of those in a minute. So that's how the wires are going to be routed over the liner to get them in the back area there. And then when you put your weather stripping on, it doesn't disturb them. But before I put everything back together, I'm going to go ahead and test it. Close the trunk, open it back up, and there they are. So they work, and so we know that since this works, we're going to go ahead and put our weather stripping back. We're going to go ahead and put our retainers back on, and everything should be good. One thing I didn't mention was that the light on the right side where my hand is, the original light, that has to be disconnected as well. So when you have the liner separated, you can just go in and unsnap the connector from the light. That way that one doesn't turn on. So you're actually disconnecting 2 lights, but you're connecting this one on the one side, and it lights up the whole, both strips. So I've got everything put back together. Check everything else. We've got a thumbs up, and we're ready to move on. But before we do that, let's kind of take a look at it and admire our work. You see how it illuminates it? It illuminates it quite nicely. And that's still in somewhat daylight, and it looks pretty good. But once you get outside in the sun, you're not going to see it that obviously, but we're all done in the back. Now to the front trunk. This is going to be just as easy as the back, but the only difference is we're going to need the pry tool. That's going to help us remove the retainers that you see, one of which is in the middle of your screen, and then we have another one to the right, that's close to that lighting over there. You can't see it that well, but we'll need it. And there's your light strip, and there's the wire that you're going to use to connect it. But there it is. It's about 14 inches long, 16 inches, and it's going to mount right there in the front part of the trunk. And first what we have to do is we have to get everything taken apart. So we're going to start by removing the weather stripping. Now this weather stripping, the perimeter is pretty short, so we can just take the whole thing off and set it aside for now. And then you want to remove the cargo net. Once we get that cargo net out, that'll allow us to remove the retainers that also act as hooks for that particular cargo net. And that'll allow us to separate the liner from the rest of the car. That's going to give us access to the first getting the light strip in place, and then also getting access to the rear of the light panel that'll allow us to route the power line so that we can make that connection. Now, taking off these retainers, it sounds kind of loud, sounds like you're really hurting something in the car, but it's not. They're made to do that. And then I'm going to go ahead and remove the lighting housing. It sounds a little loud, but again, it's made to do that. It'll give us access to the connector from the power. That little lamp can stay in place, and you just have to disconnect the power right there. There it is. And you see how easily that came off. And then you just kind of hold that for the moment. Once we do that, the next step is to go ahead and mount the light strip to the front part of the liner. Now that's not going to go onto the car itself. It's going to go onto the liner. Again, it's flexible, and so is the liner, but it's basically a straightaway. You just kind of snap it in place, again, like a paper clip goes onto a piece of paper. It's pretty easy. And then just go ahead and make sure you got it centered. Just press it down so it's seated properly. And then once you do that, you can go ahead and route your cable, and you can fold it over the edge, just like we did in the trunk where I showed you those close-ups. And then we can just go ahead and feed the power line toward the back, around the back part of the liner. But first we have to separate it to get it back there. And what we want to do is we want to have it show up where that old lighting was. And there it is. And then really all you have to do is just connect it to the power, from where I had disconnected the previous light. Again, it's really easy, as you can see. There it is. Okay. And then once that's done, now you have to just start snapping everything in place. When you look closely at that housing there, you can see where the connectors are. You can just kind of press it back into place. There's 2 locations where it happens. You'll get those snaps. Nothing to it, right? And then make sure our routing is still good here, and then close the trunk, make sure everything works before you finalize everything. Open it back up, and we have light. So it looks like we're in good shape. We got another thumbs up. And then from there, you can go ahead and put your retainers back, finish everything up in the front, and then followed by the weather stripping. Put the weather stripping back. It's really easy to do. It's only one way it goes in, and then of course it's the same thing for the retainers. But you get the weather stripping back in, and it's real easy. Once you start to do this yourself, you realize how much easier it is than what the video shows. It's really not that difficult at all. And then, of course, the cargo net's back in place, and we're all done. And there's a view from afar, backing out, admiring the work. What do you think? Leave a comment, but we're not done yet. And now to the footwells. Now, as you can see here, this is the passenger side. I'm going to take you through the installation on the passenger side, which is fairly easy. We have a little bit of trouble with access, but overall it's not too bad. And once we complete that, we'll go over to the driver's side, as you see here, and we'll go ahead and complete that. And you'll see the differences between the two. All right, we're going to make our way under the dash on the passenger side. And this is a view upside down, but you can see that smooth metal area. That's where the LED strips are going to be mounted. And along the top of your screen there, you see those 2 retainers. Those retainers are going to be removed. That's going to be our next step. If we flip the screen upside down, you can see that they'll be to the right and close to the door. The one to the left you see there will be closest to the passenger door. So now there's a right side up view, and there are the 2 retainers. we're going to go ahead and start off by removing those two, because that's going to be the first step, and then we're going to pull that fabric that you see downward to expose everything. So here the retainers being removed. This is the first one. You just use the retainer tool to get them. The one closest to the door is a little bit more difficult, but as you can see, I'm straining there, but we got it. Now, next what we're going to do is we're going to expose the light bulb and the power connector, which we've just disconnected. And there you can see me demonstrating the power strip connecting to it. We just made the connection. And then once we do that, we're just going to go ahead and route the cable toward the right, closest to the door. And then we're going to go ahead and close up that fabric there, and we're going to go ahead and place those retainers back in place. So now the difficult part's done. We've made the power connection, and we're putting our retainers back, and all we have to do is mount the strip over to the metallic area that I referenced earlier. And then you're going to route that cable behind that retainer to the right, and we'll just demonstrate for you where that strip is going to mount. And you just want to center it as best you can. Now this is the adhesion promoter. This is the substance you're going to rub onto the metallic surface that you're going to mount the LEDs to. There's a little sponge in there, and it's just saturated with the fluid. And you're just going to go ahead and rub it onto the surface, and that's going to help the LEDs stick to it. And you don't need a whole lot, just 1 or 2 passes, and then stick it back into the envelope and seal it, because you're going to need it again for the left side. And then you peel off your backing, put your strip in place, center it as best you can, and then press it down, to make sure it's nice and snug, and you're good to go. We're actually finished with the passenger side. Just tuck the cable back, and we're all complete. And there's a view of it, fully mounted, and we can go ahead and open the door, and there it is. Now over to the driver's side. It's a little bit different than the passenger side, but it's still not that difficult at all. We're going to start just to the right of that test harness. We have 2 screws that are driven by 7mm socket. Those 2 screws are about 6 inches apart. And again, the first one is closest to that harness there. And we're going to start off by removing those with our 7mm socket. And then that's going to allow us to drop the fabric so that we can expose that light bulb that you see there. Because we're going to go ahead and take that connection and remove it. And we're going to connect our LED to that power connection. So now you can see the light bulb. Now that light bulb, you just twist it and remove it from that plate there. And then you just disconnect the power, and then you're going to reconnect it to the LED. And you can see it comes off pretty easily. It takes a little doing, but it can be done. And then you can stick the disconnected bulb back into the plate there where it was stored. And then now we're going to make our power connection for our LED. The biggest trouble here is just reaching into there and getting it done because of where it's located. And now we're going to go ahead and close it back up. But when you do that, be sure to route that power wire just to the inside of the left screw that you removed, you're replacing right now. You're going to be to the right of the one that's closest to the door, as you can see. So we're routing the cable right at that location, again, just inside that screw. We can go ahead and tighten them up, and then once we do that, we can close the door and open it back up just to test it and make sure it works. That way we don't have to redo everything that we just tried to do. So our light works, so we're good there. This is where the LED strip's going to be mounted. That little plastic area that has like a waffle pattern, that's where it's going to go. Now in this particular case, on this side, you're going to take the very last inch of the backing that's on there. You're going to keep that in place. So you're going to want to cut it. So when you peel it back, you're going to leave that piece there because it's going to actually get tucked under a tie wrap that's going to be there, on the car. All right, so we've just prepped the surface with the remainder of the adhesion promoter. We're going to go ahead and peel the backing. And we're going to go ahead and stick it in place. Now remember, the very last inch at the far end of the LED strip that you don't see, we kept the backing on that part of it because it's just tucked under a, I guess you could say, a tie wrap that's already there. I'm sorry I don't have a picture of it for you, but it's there, and it's keeping the other end of it snug. Now we're just going to go ahead and protect those wires by taping them to the underside of our dash, and that just keeps them from getting caught. There we have a thumbs up, and we're all done. There we are. What do you think? Leave a comment. Okay, I hope you like that. I tried to give you some information just to kind of show you what it took to get those LEDs in, and I apologize for some of the camera angles. I know that the area that we were working on sometimes almost fell off the frame, and I did struggle a little bit trying to get everything filmed properly for you. There were times where I had to kind of really just use my contortionist skills, or lack thereof, to try to get you the footage. And not every angle was really perfect, but I did the best I could for you so we can give you a general idea of what it took to get it done, and I hope it did help you. So please leave a comment, let me know what you think, and if you like my video, hit the like button, and if you're a new subscriber or if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button, and then also hit the bell to be notified of new videos. But with that being said, this is Ugly Mug signing out, and I look forward to seeing you soon.